Honourable members, the sitting is resumed. Please be seated. The next speaker on our list is the Honourable Gillian Burton Persaud. You have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, permit me to respond briefly to some comments previously made by the Honourable Member Minister Brooms in her presentation. And I would love to indicate that we, the women on this side of the House, are just as dignified and proud as the women on that side of the House. Since we too were born out of a rich and dignified legacy, political legacy. Like true mothers, we are here to safeguard the interest of the people of Guyana, and we will not reduce our presentations to undebatable levels. We are strong, wise, and focused enough not to become diverted from the business at hand or to be disrespectful to our fellow sister parliamentarians. And we are proud of our brothers and our leader, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Barrett Jagdeo, and all our comrades on this side of the House. I will have hoped that the expressed sentiments of abuse by the Honourable Minister would have been made a few months earlier when a member on the government side of the House was verbally abusive and disrespectful publicly to a female member on this side of the House. And as it went further, was even more abusive to female activists, women's rights activists, and even female parliamentarians on this side of the House when it was stated that if an apology was to have from that member, the female activists and members of parliament was to kiss a certain part of that person's anatomy that I will not mention. And it was in the press. It was public, so you need to read it, Honourable Minister. However, I would leave with one Creole's proverb: when you got glass windows, don't throw stones. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2016 captioned "Stimulating Growth, Restoring Confidence, the Good Life Beckons" is a big fat untruth. In fact, Budget 2016 is not labor-friendly at all. Instead, it continues to be a fresh approach to deception. The workers of Guyana continues to be deceived and duped by this government, Mr. Speaker. And I say so because in the campaign of May 2015, the workers of Guyana were promised a 20% increase. By the time Budget 2015 was read, it went to 10%, a substantial increase. But when the mathematics was done, it was a mere 5% increase. And the government did not adhere at 2015 budget to the collective bargaining process. No union was consulted. In 2016 budget, there are no increases. And we're told by the Honourable Minister of Finance that that was due to late submissions by the committee and that negotiations are still ongoing. Mr. Speaker, I say that is unacceptable. It's unacceptable because government knew the deadline for the budget. Government knew that increases to public servants in this country is something that they always look forward to, regardless of who happens to be the government of the day. And I hear sentiments expressed that we need to give it a chance to work. Mr. Speaker, I would say that the government officials got a hefty increase after mere 3 months in government. And in labor terms, it is considered a probationary period. And we all know that during a probationary period, no one is entitled to any sort of increases in salaries or benefits. And that they have not given the process a chance to work in their case, but they expect the public servants to give it a chance to work for them. Well, sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander. And the very government, when in opposition, used to dub persons who received certain sums of money as fat cats. Well, they have now become the new fat cats of the Guyana society. Mr. Speaker, many contract workers were terminated after May 11, 2015. Many of them young qualified Guyanese, many of them single parents, and even some who were disabled. However, recent evidence have shown that there is an increase of 577 contract workers being employed after May the 11th. The Ministry of Presidency alone have an increase of 207 persons, with an added employment cost of $849,989,000. This is unbelievable when taken into consideration that over 40 persons were terminated from the One Laptop for Family project, which came under the very ministry, and that 90% of those who were under the age of 30 years were highly qualified, and they were youths. So much for the advancement of youths in this country. Mr. Speaker, the sugar industry is under threat. The closing of the Wales estate will have dire effect not only on the workers of that industry, of that estate, but also to the communities, the persons that live there and have their businesses there. Families will be affected. The private persons who have their taxis, who have their shops, who do their small businesses will be affected. But then I hear the honorable member say that the merging of the Wales Sugar Estate with IFLOC will be able to cushion some sort of effects. Mr. Speaker, I am saying that I have spoken to persons working at the Wales Estate, many of them women, and they were boasting how they were able to educate their children, send them to universities locally and overseas, and that they were proud of the outcome of those children. Mr. Speaker, that was done while they were workers working in the sugar industry. And so if we close that industry, many children will not have a chance. There were mothers who were crying as to what will become of the future of their children, because that was where they got their livelihood from. Mortgages will be affected. The very homes that we boast about, that we will be able to give lands for people to build homes and purchase homes, will not become a reality for these persons at Wales. And, Mr. Speaker, I hear that the pensioners are having to own meters and to gain subsidies is no excuse to take it away. Pensioners would have served their due to the Guyana society, and the People's Progressive Party, Civic, sought a way of repaying them, not only by their old age pensions, not only by their NIS pensions, but by giving them relief to those who own homes and had the meters in their names. But I also heard a member of the government side, Mr. Hemraj, who was saying, the honorable member, Mr. Hemraj, saying that we had the right, instead of just giving the subsidy to one sector of persons, and the figure was touted as 7,000 persons, why not give it to everybody? Well, then I'm saying to those on the government side of the house, the ball is in your court now. Instead of taking it away and giving the measly increases that they're given, give everybody the subsidy. Let them get a chance at the good life and the fresh approach that you're talking about. Honorable Speaker, the sugar industry is under threat. And so we need to look at it. We need to pay attention to it. Because at one time, it would have been noted and it would have been said that sugar is king in Guyana. That king needs help. And I think it is the right of the government of this country to give the help so that that king could stand up strong again. When we talk about beet sugar and the various types of sugar, Mr. Speaker, I happened to be at the EU conference when the Caribbean countries were discussing the effects of sugar, of the sugar industry, and that it was said, yes, beet sugar should be the way to go. Today, Guyana is the only country that have a vibrant sugar industry remaining. All the rest in the Caribbean so far have closed. The rice industry is dying under suspicious circumstances. What is the impact of rice? The impact of the ailing rice industry is that persons are losing their homes. The banks are repossessing their equipment. They're taking away their homes. Persons are becoming hopeless. They're becoming despondent. They are becoming depressed. And in Region 2, which is one of the most viable rice industries in this country, we see the impact, the devastating impact it's having in that region. A motion was brought to this parliament for us to discuss the issue of sugar and the issue of rice. And the purported statements that it is it's not the government's business. I'm asking.
Honourable Member, I do believe that you should stick closer to what is intended here and not seek to import into the debate matters with which the Speaker deals with directly.
Mr. Speaker, if rice or sugar is nobody's business, it's not the government's business, whose business it is? Mr. Speaker, the business of the workers in the non-traditional sector, they are now hard-pressed with the various license and taxes and the haphazard removal. The small enterprises will die a natural death. Many of them are youths who are hoping to acquire and own their own homes, as was stated by the Honorable Minister Patterson, Valerie Patterson. And I'm asking, how will they own these homes? How will they pay for these homes if they are burdened with taxes and license that will eat away at the profits that they're making? Therefore, Budget 2016 will not allow them to do that. It will put them under severe pressure, and not will the government have to repossess these homes and lands. The banks will do it, because they will go to the banks to get the money to pay for these homes. And when they can't do it, it's business, not a busyness with the banks. They will take it away. And so their dreams will die quicker than they start to live. Mr. Speaker, the repossessing of homes and lands, the restriction of used and reconditioned vehicles, the ban on the importation of used tires, the restriction on the importation of used and heavy-duty motorized vehicles will in no way stimulate growth. These are things that add to the lives and the well-beings of the ordinary man in Guyana. We hear about teachers being able to acquire things with their salary increases. It was the People's Progressive Party Civic administration who made it possible for some sectors of the teaching society to be able to get duty-free concessions to get vehicles. And we know their salaries. How will they able to maintain those vehicles with the salaries they have to buy new tires? Those with the money can, those who don't have it will then either have to sell their vehicles or leave them parked under the houses. Mr. Speaker, it It is impossible for the ordinary citizens to achieve the good life that the government say beckons. The government have aborted all its promises to the workers. But it is not surprising, since the labor sector is now being treated like an abandoned child. I heard the comments from the other side of the House, Mr. Speaker, during the honorable member's Mustafa presentation, to stay out of the business. Well, let me emphasize that this is not private business in this House. It is Guyana's business, and as the opposition, we have the right in Guyana's business. Governing a country is not child's play. Maybe this might be the government feeling. Maybe that might be the mindset that is reflected in the many playgrounds being established across Guyana. The only new initiatives of the infrastructure work being evident. All the other infrastructure works are PPP Civic initiatives negotiated, signed, and sealed. But let me remind the government, all play and no work make Jack and Jill dull children. And I think if the honorable members on that side of the House will just cast their eyes north to see the many empty seats since they last entered Parliament, it is an indication that persons have started to have a change of heart.
No credibility. No credibility.
Our public servants who are continuously marginalized by way of the unfulfilled promises of substantial increases and wages and salaries. Mr. Speaker, I speak to tourism. In the budget, the Honorable Minister of Finance stated on page 36, and I quote, "On the destination Guyana, this government recognizes the immense value to be garnered from further advancing Guyana's tourism. Momentum is being built through both public and private sector investments. Already the cleaning of our city has begun to restore its beauty and attract new visitors. In 2015, the government continued to support the tourism industry through product development and marketing under the new initiatives Guyana, South America, Undiscovered," end of quote. Mr. Speaker, we are still to arrive at the touted destination Guyana, since tourism continues to take us on a tour to nowhere. The tourism sector is barren of fresh initiatives. However, it continues to photocopy those of the People's Progressive Party Civic administration. The revision of the National Tourism Policy remains unaccomplished. Proposed initiatives in Budget 2015 are yet to materialize. Mr. Speaker, heritage and cultural tourism are marginalized events. In 2015, the Christmas tree light-up and the Christmas jamboree were allocated $10 million, while the Rupununi Expo was given a paltry $500,000. Yet we talk about ecotourism. Yet we talk about looking into the interests of the hinterland and our Amerindian sisters and brothers, our indigenous people. But yet festivals that are of their culture, festivals that come out of their initiatives, are being marginalized. Mr. Speaker, the tourism plans are more projected to visitors from overseas. What about local tourism, which will allow Guyanese at home to enjoy the wonderful sights of the country? Especially, Mr. Speaker, the workers, the public servants. Mr. Speaker, Our cultural diversity is evident, and we must protect it. Our public servants continually work hard, and we need to look at ways in which they can enjoy all the aspects of our country. We need to put systems in place, since they are not only marginalized by the way of unfulfilled promises of substantial increases in wages and salaries, but they are marginalized in ways that they cannot effectively see the beauty of this dear land of ours. Mr. Speaker, I do hope that the budget which was read to us of 2016 will have had something more for the children of Guyana. And if we look at page 17 of this budget, Mr. Speaker, under gender equality, it states, promoting gender equality has been established globally as a development strategy for reducing poverty levels among women and men, improving health and living standards, and enhancing efficiency of public investments. Our government is working assiduously to develop a society in which all girls and boys, women and men, live together in safety and harmony with dignity and mutual respect. Mr. Speaker, when we were looking at the budget of the autonomous agencies, the agency that had the largest cut in its budget was that of the rights of the child. So much for the youth, the future of tomorrow. Mr. Speaker, I do hope that when the national gender policy is launched, we will see included a section addressing not only women in leadership, but also women in parliament, because we need to recognize that as females, parliamentarians are role models for the women outside of this National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, in closing, let me say that Budget 2016 is backward and empty. And it is reflective, as the Bible verse says, to those who have, more shall be added, and to those who don't, even the little shall be taken away. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.